Call the meeting to order, Jackson County Commission, April 24, 2018, regular meeting. First, we'd like to have a roll call. Mr. Manning?
Yes, sir. District 1, Mr. Governor. Present. District 2, Mr. Gamble. Present. District 3, Ms. Gilbert. Present. District 4, Mr. Sis. Present. Chairman also present.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. Next, we'll have the invocation by Mr. Porter.
God our Father, we are truly blessed to be here. We are thankful for the amazing place that you've given us to live. We pray that we will be good conservators of that land that you've given us, for all the hills and the valleys and the streams and the woods. We're thankful for those, and we pray that we'll take care of them. We're thankful for the people that live in this county. Pray that you'll help this commission to take care of them and make decisions that are in their best interest. Pray you'll continue to watch over us and guide us every day. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Would someone, Ms. Gilbert, would please believe?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we need approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting. Do we have a motion for approval of this?
No, make that motion.
We have a motion, we have a second. We have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Next, we have awards and presentations. We have none tonight. Then we come to public comments from citizens. We have signed up to speak tonight, Mr. Laurel. Mr. Beaver.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce my committee member, friend Robbie Copenhagen, who's also here. We're representing Roseberry Rescue Group, which you may know is a nonprofit organization created for the very simple and only responsibility we have, and that is for the protection of the water weeds in Roseberry, to try to eliminate the water weeds in Roseberry. And this is a project that we've started back in 2008. We've done 3 weed management projects in the meantime. The last one was in 2015, and each of these projects lasts for about 3 years. They're effective for about a 3-year period of time. So at the end of 2017, it became apparent that that there would have to be a new project in 2018. We have already done all the preparatory work for that, and now we're at what seems to be the very most difficult part, and that is to try to secure the funding to do the plan. The plan this time is a full embayment treatment, as it has been before, which is really focused on the center of the embayment to try to keep the weeds pushed back and managed in the center of the embayment. TVA does some work around the shorelines, but our focus is on the center of the embayment, which becomes difficult to navigate through as unless you work to manage these weeds and to control these weeds. Of course, I think most of you know that these are non-native weeds. They're not. This is milfoil and hydrilla that we focus on. This is if it were a weed that was typical and to this region, we wouldn't address those weeds. But these are weeds that are drawn in from various sources, and they spread across the TVA system. There's a chemical that we use called fluoridone that is successful in managing this weed in slow-moving bodies of water like this embayment. So if you look at this, and then Big Spring and Gunnersville, those are 2 areas that are, because of the nature of the water and the flow of the water, are very successful with the use of this chemical. And like I said, it manages the chemical manages the process for a 3-year period. The 2018 project is $180,000, and that's for the management of the process for the treatments, which are staged over a period of time, starting in the middle of May. We anticipate that would begin in the middle of May. In the past, the funding has been basically 25%, at least what we envisioned was 25% coming from the city of Scottsboro, 25% from the legislative delegation funding, 25% from the Jackson County Commission, and then 25% was raised by lakefront property owners and citizens of Scottsboro. Typically, we have had pretty good success from the legislative delegation. We've had excellent success from the city of Scottsboro in funding the project, and we've had good success from the citizens. But what we haven't had is very good success with the county commission. And that's despite that, and the natural tendency that when you ask once or twice for a program like this and it hasn't been successful, there's a tendency not to try again. We come back this time to ask again for the funding because it becomes more and more critical each time we do a program like this because TVA is doing less and less. They made a plan 4 years ago to gradually withdraw from this program, and they're down now where they'll probably do 2 treatments this year, and that'll be one before 4th of July and one before Labor Day. And so it's incumbent on us as a group of citizens and bodies of government to take on this task to preserve the pristine beauty of this embayment and to allow folks to come into the embayment and enjoy the embayment. Because as these weeds are spreading across the lake and other regions, it becomes less and less, there are less and less areas that you can actually do things like boating and jet skis and rafting and those sort of activities. And so we come tonight to ask for $30,000 to support the program. We've already been to the city of Scottsboro, and we've opened a discussion with them. We anticipate to have some success with the city of Scottsboro. We began the fundraising for the private citizen group. And as I understand it, the legislative delegation and the commission works together with one funding now. So we didn't take an approach toward the legislative delegation. Maybe that's incorrect. That's one of the things we want to try to understand. But somewhere we need some help from the county commission or the legislative delegation, or both would even be better if that's the case. And you know, one point I want to stress is that for the county, you know, I mean, even though the embayment is sitting in the city of Scottsboro, it's also for all use of everybody. And so the big difference is that within this embayment, there's only a few revenue producing activities in there. You have a restaurant, you have a boat rental area, you have a place where the fuel is pumped for the boats, and the taxes are gained from that. And then you have the cabins and the campground where you've invested very heavily there to make a good business venture out of that. And you know, and I think that's been an excellent program. But if you can't access the lake, then it starts to lose some of the luster that I'm sure that you intended for it to have, and probably some of the financial success you had intended for it to have. So our request is very simple. We would appreciate it if we could count on a $30,000 contribution. It's a 3-year program, so this $30,000 would actually be the equivalent of $10,000 a year for a 3-year period of time. But we would need the money up front for the $30,000. So I guess that's a reasonable summary of our expectation and what we would request. And I'm open for any questions if you have any.
One thing, could you clarify what you're talking about with the center of embayment?
You know, with the embayment of Roseberry, it's the area that's coming off the mouth of the river into that eventually makes its way around the bend, and then there's City Park, and then County Park is I would call it the back end of the embayment. So that area is the whole area there is the embayment. And what we're talking about is the area that is really the center of that, not the shoreline so much, because TVA treats that,
Right.
and then individuals treat that around their own boat dock, but it's actually the center of the embayment.
When you come off the main channel, when you make that turn.
All the way into the park.
And once you come all the way into that area, so you're really talking about that center area where you have, over the course of the summer, you see so much boating activity there. People rafting, what do you call it when you pull the thing behind the boat? Yeah, tubing and all that sort of stuff, and jet skiing and boating through there. It's not so much as a fishing area, although fishing is good in that area, and this chemical doesn't impact the fishing at all, but it is an area of boating and recreational activity is in this embayment, and you know, that's why we see, as we've done these programs before, that draws a lot of people into the embayment. And I'm sure they buy gas, they buy hamburgers, they rent pontoon boats from the rental agency, and they camp there. So I think if you look at it as a whole, there's really a lot to be gained for the county commission to support this program and to take this problem off of your table, and we put it on ours. which is effectively what we do. We manage the program ourselves.
Mr. Manning, in your recollection, and that payout from that TVA and lieu of taxes, wasn't there $30,000 to go to Roseberry Grove?
There was.
There was.
25 or 30, yeah.
There was 30,000.
30, yeah, there
And we
was.
got the check just this past week.
Okay.
But, you know, that was for the 2015 program. That was the one that was the previous program. So we had waited, we actually borrowed that money to do that project under the idea that someday we would get that amount of money. So, you know, while it's fresh as receiving the money, we actually borrowed that money 2.5 years ago.
As far as the partnership with delegation in the county, there's really not a partnership of that $1 million outlay. We basically didn't get any of it. And our TVA and lieu of tax money has gone down, and of course, it's before my time. I think it was because of most allocations, everything was cut to balance budget. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, and when the current delegation rewrote the TVA in lieu of bill and done with the discretionary spending, the county got roughly, what, a little over a third of those dollars that did go into that discretionary spending, and roughly a third of it went to the municipalities, and roughly a third went into the education, the two education systems in Scottsboro and Jackson County. So and in that same year, our drop in TVA in lieu of eat up that third that we got out of that, because the shrinking assets, the shrinking, TVA's based on three different things. It's the assets they have within our county borders, the power they produce within the borders, and the power consumed within their borders. Our consumption's down because our industry's been down. They were writing off Belfont. They closed Widows Creek, so Widows Creek's not producing, and now they've sold it, so they don't have that asset. So our TVA in lieu of dollars go down every year.
Well, I personally know several companies that are growing quite dramatically in this county. I manage one of those. But I can see your problem, and I don't pretend to tell you how to govern. I mean, I know governing isn't about making tough decisions, but I do think it's important for you to at least consider the fact that, you know, there's a lot of money generated through tourism, there's a lot of money generated through boat sales, gas sales, and those sort of things, and I think it's, you know, it's a legitimate request that when you have a program like this, that at least 1/4 of it is being contributed by the citizens, besides the taxes they pay. You know, you really are talking about just a request to say, would you please direct part of those taxes to this specific program? At $10,000 a year, it doesn't seem like a lot. If you did it yourself, it'd cost you a lot more, and that's why, you know, it seems like a partnership like this makes good sense, and because it's not a problem that's gonna go away. And I'd like to say it's gonna go away. I'd like to say TVA is gonna pick up the challenge and go back to the good old days. But even in the good old days, in 2008, when they were treating the weeds 4 times a year, we still had to have this program because the center of the embayment was closing up. So it's, you know, we would appreciate your participation.
It's not an issue that's taken lightly. There's been discussion, you know, about that. Mr. Duffy,
Yeah, like Mr. Venable was saying, it ain't a fact that, you know, I don't want y'all to think that we're just refusing to help Roseberry. It ain't that. It's when we made those cuts, you know, we had to balance out what are we gonna spend money on, and we cut Council on Aging, Senior RX. There was a bunch of programs, DHR, 4-H. I mean, we can go down a list of stuff, but that's the reason. But I have been working with some of our other elected officials, been talking to them about maybe some other ways to fund this. It ain't something that's gonna be a quick fix, but I'm hoping to work with other community leaders, other elected officials, see if we can't come up with something that won't come out of county general fund or city general fund. It'll be a way to fund it, you know, and we won't have to be having, you know, y'all have to come here to, you know, be looking for it.
Yeah, and we would appreciate that certainly, because we'd like to find some sort of long-term funding so we don't have to do this
that's what
every
he's
year
looking for.
ourselves. And we appreciate that. And there is some work being done on that by the stakeholder group out of Marshall County in conjunction with Jackson County and some things like that. But I mean, the problem we have today is that if we put this off another year, it's gonna cost $360,000 next time, and we will eventually lose control of it, and it's gonna look like the rest of the embankment. I mean, if you look at it now, if you look from Highway 35 back toward the marina there at County Park, I mean, you know how it looked last year, and it's not gonna get any better. And I mean, you know, this isn't the problem that you can do. I recognize that governing is tough decisions, and while I respect all those things that you all do and the decision you have to take, and I don't say that one program is worth the other, I do believe that this is a program that, since it's producing revenue, which makes it a little different from some of those programs you mentioned, this is a revenue-producing program for the county, with the sales and with the revenue coming from the businesses there. It would seem to me like that this would create a special consideration from your perspective.
And with that said, you were touching on the growth of industry in our area and the new industry and the growth. Most of those businesses or industries are abated, so therefore we're getting no tax from them either. So
Well, we do create payroll, so.
we don't get that much.
This issue of the 180,000, is that, how is that, I don't know nothing about the water about that right there, but what is the company that y'all have to hire to get this?
Yeah, they do the same, they do the work for TVA as well. So they're the contractor that TVA does to do all the treatments in Jackson and Marshall County. And we also hire them as our advisor and as the executor of these programs. They do the weed treatments for this. They're licensed, they have all the certificates and permits and all that are required. Because you gotta have somebody who knows what they're doing there, or otherwise people just start throwing stuff in the lake and it causes an environmental issue.
Well, what I'm getting at, would TVA allow this weed to be removed?
Yeah. They wholeheartedly are in favor of programs like this. They say that this problem is going to have to be solved by, other sources besides TVA. They say we just don't have the funding and we're not going to be able to do it. And I can tell you the reason that is because, like on Lake Gunnersville, this is a problem that we've dealt with for the last 12, 14 years. But all these other lakes on the TVA system are starting to have similar problems, and they're having spread of weeds there. And so they have a choice, TVA has a choice, and that is to either pick it up and do it in all the other lakes, or to stop doing it in the one lake that they are doing it, which is Lake Gunnersville. And so in that case, I mean, it's an easy corporate decision for them to say, well, we just stop it all together and let the communities pick up this responsibility. I don't think it meets their charter. I think their charter requires them to do certain things. I mean, who's got that kind of time and money to fight TVA over that?
This aquatic bunch is on 431 down there at Claysville. You know anything about them? What they do about removing it or anything?
Who is that? I don't
It's right across from the State Department at Claysville on 431.
know.
Right direct across from the State Department. The reason I was asking, my son-in-law, he had an offer to go to a job in Mississippi, and they came in and removed this. And I mean, I seen the boats and stuff it had. It went out there and just poured it up the roots and taking it out of the lakes and stuff. But he had said something about that company right there across from the State Department. Had some equipment to do the same thing with that.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it. I can't comment on that, except that the only thing that I can add is that, we've done this program 3 times now. We're using this chemical, and this chemical treatment we use, because it's a slow-moving body of water, so you have to have the water holding in place for a certain period of time so that the treatment works at the bottom of the lake. And they've had success with it, and that's what places use, like in Florida and some of these places where they have
I wonder what that right there, if it's anything good or it's just something to sell.
I can't say. I mean, I can have them look at it and see if they know what it is,
It
but
says it's EPA approved and everything for the waters.
it could be it's the same thing. I just don't know. I know the chemical is very expensive, and that's where the real cost is.
And I know that company in Mississippi, they just took and removed it from, like areas around Roseberry.
Yeah.
So that's what we actually need, instead of having to face the treatment every year. It was,
Have any more discussion? Any of the other commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, could I address
Yes.
something on, just to add a little more information for everyone to share. As we're talking about over the past 3 or 4 years, and we're talking about sales tax or lodging tax or whatever, the lodging tax here is 14%, as you probably know. The county's portion of that is 2%, and that does not come to the county. The sales tax here locally is 9%, and the 2% of that sales tax does not come to the county. So we have not been able to participate in the tremendous sales tax growth that other entities have enjoyed over the past few years. So when you do not have a growth tax to replace lost revenue, it really, really makes it difficult. The commission's not just making excuses or want to make sure that the facts get out there. With the loss of revenue that we've suffered, when you have no growth tax whatsoever, it makes it tough to handle some things like that. I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that of our sales tax and of our lodging tax, the county government gets zero. And
Where do you get your tax? Where do you get your revenue from?
the biggest portion would be from a property tax and from the TVA in lieu of taxes, which, as they had mentioned, I think it's fell, the TVA in lieu of taxes fell about $26,000 to $700,000 since 2012, and that was one of our main revenue sources.
Are you aware that the value of property on lakefront property is valued 10 times the value of property across the street from it? And that's the kind of thing that if the weeds grow up and the lake isn't navigable or usable, that property tax value will go down.
No disagreement with you about that. I mean, property tax, what they are.
Yeah, it's not that we, we see a lot of things that we would like to participate in, and we feel the need to participate in. We had Impact Learning come, 2 months ago, asked for $9,000 for their overhead. That's something that I feel like is a great asset and service to our community. We just couldn't afford it. We just couldn't afford, $9,000 to give them. We had to give our employees raises in 5 years now. And it's hard for us to find enough funds to operate on, much less invest in things that we feel like needs to be done.
I appreciate you doing that.
I mean, I don't disagree with, like you said, the boating, my number one favorite thing to do around here. But, like I said, our money.
It's hard for us to say no, when you are a citizen around here. But, with the funding, like I just mentioned right there, what Bob said, if you go to Walmart and spend $100, we get nothing. You think, no, that's not right, but,
Well, if there is no more discussion right now, I think we need to discuss this further with each other, with one another, and see if there's any viable way that we can find a solution.
Mike, just to point out, if I could, he mentioned property tax. It is based off sales. So if the property that's on the lake is 10 times that of what's across the street, it's because it's selling for 10 times that across the street. And there again, like he's pointing out, that if people stop buying that lakefront property, the value will go down. And if the weeds are bad, I guess they'll stop buying that property. But
On a $100,000 house, how much is property tax approximately? Hard to say.
I think we got done it at one time,
So-
about $57, I think.
So just to give you a rough idea, if you was out in the county and you had a $100,000 house, you'd be paying roughly $300, somewhere around there. If you're in the city limits of Scottsboro, a $100,000 house, you'd be paying about $600. So really, you pay about double in the
So
city.
if you got a,
But that's a municipality, but.
That's right, so
The
that's
millage-
Scottsboro's tax.
The millage that the city
Yeah, all that
of
costs the
Scottsboro
city,
has.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I had been asked by some folks, some officials, about adding that to, the city could add a millage rate, or, the city could do anything they want to do. They can add a millage rate to everybody that lives on Roseberry, to pay for that. We would collect it, we'd be glad to collect it for them.
Well, in that case, we'd have to turn it into a private lake, because I'm sure they wouldn't want to be the only one funding it and everybody else using it. Roseberry is, the people living around Roseberry are not a governmental agency, I can assure you. I have just as much difficulty getting money from them as we do from anybody else, but, okay, look, I think we've taken enough of your time, and, it's something that that we're passionate about, and we hope that you can find a way to help us.
Well, we appreciate you.
your time for it.
We appreciate you coming, and we're gonna have more discussion and see, maybe we could find some kind of solution somewhere.
Okay, well, okay, is that okay if I?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, buddy.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate y'all coming.
Thank you, appreciate it.
See,
Now we'll go forward with old business. You'll notice on the agenda, we've got a motion to approve the minutes from 3 different meetings. First one is January the 8th, January 22nd, and February 5th, all of 2018. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from these meetings as received? We have a motion and second.
Second, yeah.
Come on. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no.
you do all three, right?
Right. We're going to new business now. First, we have a motion to approve the Jackson County Council on Aging updated rules and regulations for appropriate behavior.
Make that motion.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. Next, we have a motion to create a temporary office clerk position for Jackson County Sanitation for up to 6 months of employment.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. Next, we have a motion to accept a quote to construct a pavilion at the campground at the county park. And you will see in your packet, we have 3 quotes. Do we have a motion for any one of these 3?
Park director,
Yeah.
Perfect.
Carl's everything covered in all of these, or?
I just got 2 now, so I've got, I
Yeah, this one.
don't have that.
Can't do that.
There was supposed to have been 2 more that had come in, but one of them called me back, and that's when I asked Mike, did he get the other one? But, he couldn't start before last July, and I told him we needed something before that. That was in Addison, Alabama.
That's pretty close to 6,800 on that. The only thing is about 6,800, 6,800 is slow.
Yeah,
It's
that's
a
what I
local
was.
person, so you're looking at about a little over $200 more you have to pay, but you will be keeping it local.
All 3 of these would have a
Three
little.
of them over right here. Yeah, they're out. Yeah.
Everything on me, I don't know, I got that,
Yeah, he's local.
and
He
this
goes
is,
2 metal, that's local.
okay, that's on the third one. And then I was, no, that one,
Third
and that one is,
T-Mobile.
wood, yeah, wood.
Okay. Well, then, you got it on 6,600.
But all 3 cover the things you need?
Yeah, from what I read on that one there.
Have you worked with, ever had any work done by any of these companies that have seen bids before?
The Alpha Omega company, the other one who built the building down at the park. At the boat ride place.
Have you ever heard of it?
TJ Metals, I mean, you know.
I mean, this one.
I know Chambers, he's not built the fire department over at
Where's your
Woodville.
sis?
Yeah, he's done work all across Jackson County and Huntsville, but he built, I know he built the fire hall right there in Woodville.
As long as they're all licensed and bonded and stuff like that, then,
Do we have a motion to accept a quote from one of the 3?
I'll make a motion, wait a minute.
Would y'all like to table it at this time?
No, I wanna get this done if we can get it on the way, but, this one has 6x6 posts, and it's pole barn, steel pole barn trusses. this one doesn't give any explanation of construction techniques, so it's hard to compare apples to apples.
That's what I kept asking, if you had talked to them directly.
Yeah, if we're gonna have people turn in bids, we need, to write specs,
Yeah.
and they need to bid on the specs, because we're getting different, we're not, they're not comparable,
Right.
so.
This says concrete in ground, 6 is what Jason says.
One says painted, the other one
But
says,
this one is.
So-
They're telling
Well,
you.
they're all different, this one didn't give any information, this one is different than what Carl explained to me, this one is bid, so I think we need, as bad as I hate to table it, because I want to move forward with it, but I think we need to table it, write a bid spec, if we're gonna bid it, and have the people all get price on the same method of construction, the same materials.
Is that one okay?
Yeah, I mean, they're all fine, it's
Well, I mean,
just.
but this one's a little more explanatory, I mean, we use this one
Yeah,
as.
well, Carl needs to write it, this may not be fine for Carl.
Right.
Needs to write what they
Maintenance,
want.
future maintenance of it and stuff, it makes a difference, 6x6 bumblebees and, those pole barn trusses have a webbing that birds will land in and, what you get underneath there when the birds have a place to land. So I think we need to write a bid spec and
So you make a motion to table
I
it.
do.
I second.
You have a motion to table this till the next meeting, commission meeting. Do we have a second?
I second.
Motion and second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say no.
Now, just let y'all know, middle prices are going up, so it's a possibility, in the next 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, it'll be higher than what it is now.
We're gonna accept multiple bids, multiple prices, I mean, I know we're gonna have to bid it out. It's under
Somebody's gonna have to write out what's
But Somebody's
needed.
gonna have to write out a list of what needs to be bid on. Right.
Okay,
We can do this, 2 weeks,
yeah.
so.
And if you need to, we can put this on the agenda for the next work session. We can talk about it then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next, we'll move on to motion to appoint Eric Dorn to the Jackson County Department of Human Resources and DHR Board.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion, we have a second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. Next, we have a motion to appoint Kyle Morris to the Jackson County Personnel Board.
Before we move any further, did we have any other people turn in a letter other than?
We had these four,
Okay.
and that's how many?
We have 4 vacancies, and we had 4 interested applicants.
Do we have a motion?
Also,
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. Next, we have a motion to appoint Beth Manham to the Jackson County Personnel Board. We got a motion, we have a second. We got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. We have a motion to appoint Meg Nippers to the Jackson County Personnel Board. We have a motion, we have a second. A motion and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. We have a motion to appoint Haley Hicks to the Jackson County Personnel Board. We have a motion, we have a second. A motion and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. Now we have comments from staff. Mr. Arnold?
Not on the agenda. Yeah, I'm supposed to be involved for that position in map replacement.
Yes, we discussed that last meeting.
I thought we were going on this. I forgot, I'm sorry.
The agenda that you sent me, I don't have it, I thought it was
it's
on.
on, it's on.
It's on
the
that
agenda.
one, I thought. You got somebody that made it with.
Since we've had it in a work session, we can add it to the agenda.
I think it's on the agenda, isn't it? Where does it say on this one?
No, this one.
It's on the paper, but it's on the window.
Okay, the one I got.
Is that a problem,
Friday
Mr.
is on
Porter,
Is that-
just adding that?
That's from,
Sure.
is that thing?
Yeah,
It's
okay.
already been through.
Tell us again what we need to do.
there. I don't even remember. This was about the position, the clerk one,
We're gonna vote to,
mapper one, and the mapping and replacement office.
okay, just to hire that person?
What you sent me Friday, I guess it's changed.
Okay, well,
It says motion to advertise for a clerk one position for the Jackson County Revenue Commissioner's Office mapping and appraisal department.
Okay, we'll amend the agenda. We have a motion to advertise for a clerk one position for the Jackson County Revenue Commissioner's Office, map and appraisal department.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Is there anything else, Jeff?
Okay.
Carl, you have anything? Lynn? Ms. Manning?
No, sir.
Ms. Campbell?
No, sir, thank you.
Ms. Porter?
We're good.
Thanks.
Ms. Scuffy, you have anything?
No, sir.
Mr. Venable?
No, sir.
Ms. Sis?
I would like to commend Jonathan and the Public Works crew for supposedly being on an off day yesterday, but Mother Nature called and the employees that went out and cleaned up. I have had a call from George Lee on Penny Road 250, talking about the great deal they done, and I said, he had the guy's name, he said, Danny Hastings and wife came out and cut trees up. And then he said today they come up and he said done a magnificent job. He said, please, they say thank you to each and every one that was involved.
Thank you for those comments. I'll pass it to him. Thank you.
Ms. Gilbert?
I agree, and, did you get my email?
Yes, ma'am.
And, yeah, they did a great job, tell the guys thank you for going out and all that. I know there were several happy bus drivers this morning.
Thank you. I'll let them make sure they know.
I don't have anything else today, so this concludes everything on today's agenda. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make that motion.
Have a motion? I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. Meeting adjourned.